Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's relationship with the Biden administration, which led to the US refusing to veto ceasefire resolution at the UN Security Council on Monday, has been met with sharp criticism from Israeli commentators. After the US abstained, prominent Israeli media columnists condemned Netanyahu's growing tensions with US President Joe Biden. While Netanyahu, who has faced a sharp drop in his public approval rating since the surprise Hamas attack on southern Israel on October 7, has long been a target of much Israeli commentary, the tone in some quarters following the rare US abstention from the Security Council bordered on ridicule and contempt. Driving the sentiment is a keen awareness in Israeli society of the enormous importance of the US-Israel relationship in terms of financial aid, arms sales and Washington's diplomatic support, including its frequently used veto on Israel's behalf in the Security Council. Washington's decision not to use its veto came after a weekend during which US officials said they spoke nonstop with their Israeli counterparts, warning them in advance, suggesting that Netanyahu's decision to cancel the US delegation's visit after the vote was more calculated theater than the result of surprise. In the Hebrew-language newspaper Ma'arif, Den Caspit described the Israeli Prime Minister's approach as delusional, crazy and horrifying, adding, "This man is putting all of us at risk, our future, the future of our children, the strategic alliance that is the cornerstone of the rock of Israel's national security." No less damning was an editorial in the left-wing Israeli newspaper Haaretz, which called Netanyahu an agent of Israel's destruction who has become a burden for Israel. It exposes it to strategic risks that could be costly. For the sake of his own political survival, he deliberately harms the citizens of Israel. He must resign and give Israel a chance to save itself from the damage he has caused. The center-right Yedioth Ahronoth was equally scathing, showing a cartoon showing a diminutive Netanyahu arm wrestling the much larger Biden, with Netanyahu's fist barely wrapping around Biden's finger. In the same newspaper, columnist Nahum Barna painted an imaginary scene of American officials laughing at Netanyahu's cancellation of a delegation to Washington in protest. Netanyahu, he continued, treats America the way a spoiled teenager treats his parents, with endless rebellion, endless insults and endless scandals. Outside the media, renewed calls for Netanyahu to resign have been echoed by others, including Gershon Baskin, who helped negotiate the release of kidnapped Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit more than a decade ago. Netanyahu has gone off the rails, Baskin wrote on X. He poses an existential danger to Israel. He must leave our lives. Many of Netanyahu's critics offer similarly harsh analysis. Faced with dismal polling results, widespread unpopularity after October 7 blaming him for security failures, and a political crisis over ultra-Orthodox conscription, they suggest Netanyahu was seeking to take on Biden to appear strong. The growing criticism of Netanyahu's calculations comes amid warnings that the unanimous adoption of AU.N. Security Council resolution on AU.S. ceasefire heralds stronger moves against Israel amid growing calls for further sanctions and arms restrictions. While UN resolutions are theoretically binding on member states, the reality is that passing a resolution will likely be more important in strengthening moves outside the Security Council, as former U.S. Ambassador to Israel Daniel Kurtzer explained Monday. The Biden administration is weighing whether Israel complies with National Security Memorandum 20, which requires recipients of U.S. weapons to provide assurances that U.S. weapons will be used in accordance with international right, and that it will not impede or restrict the delivery of U.S. humanitarian assistance. The resolution could also indirectly affect legal cases before international bodies, including the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, as well as discussions by individual countries and bodies such as the EU about possible punitive measures. Seeking to explain why the US abstained from Monday's vote, Frank Lowenstein, a former State Department official who helped lead Israeli-Palestinian negotiations in 2014, told The Washington Post that he believed the move was driven by three main factors. These include deep differences between Washington and Israel over the large-scale invasion of Rafah, the disastrous humanitarian situation in Gaza, and Israeli announcements of new settlements during Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to the country. Biden has done everything he can for months to avoid a big public fight. This reflects a very serious shift in the White House's position on how to manage the Israelis throughout this war. The Israelis will either pay attention to this, or we will most likely continue down this path.